And so welcome to our third Inflow workshop. This one is focused on skills development. And I thought it would be great if we could have Erin and Leslie kind of just kick off, just kind of tell us a little bit about yourselves. And then that way our presenters kind of know our audience and who you guys are, and then we'll kind of go from there. And then after that, I'll share the agenda and we'll kick it off. So I don't know who wants to go first. Erin, Leslie. Erin.
So just checking it, this is like a brief intro and not our elevator pitch time, correct?
Correct.
Good, that's what I thought. Okay. So I am Erin. I'm pivoting from teaching to engineering. I'm a senior, and I've had one internship doing water quality resources, and I'm about to get to work with Clean Water Services, working with their integrated watershed management approach. So I'm just feeling very lucky, and I'm super happy to be here and part of this. And I have to say that the amazing H2O duo has been in my ear pretty much since they started, and I'm just like, so I had my vaccine, I don't feel good. I was like, but isn't your last class easy? I was like, yeah.
That's great.
Cool.
Awesome. I also was like, okay, I need to introduce myself, but not dive straight into the elevator pitch. Yeah. So hi, I'm Leslie Martinez. I work at Tetra Tech, and I've been working there for about a year, and I graduated recently in 2020. So recent grad, recent, early career. But yeah, I work in the wastewater resources sort of area at Tetra Tech, but we do like a whole bunch of different stuff. And I mainly do some design engineering and a lot of drafting.
Cool.
And Leslie, where geographically are you located? Not that it matters because we're all virtual anyway, but
yeah, I'm at the Portland office. I live in Portland.
Oh, great. Okay.
Nice. Yeah, and then so our other participants are mostly young professionals who are about a year to 2 years in their career, and then one of them is also still in school. So yeah. With that, I'll go ahead and share my screen and pull this one up. Drop that. So here's our agenda for the day. We're going to start with a presentation from Rob and Stephanie and Ariane, talking about how they got here. And then I'll kind of jump into a conversation on creating and selling the story of you. We'll take a short break, do our elevator pitches, and then Tom will do his presentation on negotiation. And then we'll finish out with a discussion about negotiation led by Sam. So with that, I'll go ahead and pass it off to Rob, Stephanie, and Ariane. I think Rob was going to start first.
Yeah, and I just saw we have a guest on. Is that just the recording, or is there someone else on? I just didn't want to neglect someone else who jumped in.
I don't think anyone else.
Okay.
I think the guest is Erin, so.
Oh, okay. Oh,
yeah.
Great. Okay. All right. Well, let me share, because I'm a traditional engineer and I don't like people looking at me, so I'm going to have them look at slides. Let me share some slides, and as part of this, I'll do my introduction through the slides, so you'll get to know who I am this way. And here we are a year into the pandemic, so hopefully the share screen worked. Everyone sees a full screen. Great. Okay. So my name is Rob Lee. I am here located in Portland. I'm currently serving on the board of directors for PNCWA as the president-elect. Come September, I will move into the president role. I am also the founder of Leeway Engineering Solutions, so you'll get to hear a little bit more about that journey. The agenda showed 20 minutes. Gosh, if I talk about myself for 20 minutes, someone please just mute me. That is not the intent of this this presentation, but I did want to share a little bit about myself and my journey. So this is me. I'm the little boy here being held by this gorgeous young lady who's my mom. My parents immigrated to the United States, and I was born in Iowa, and I moved to Oregon when I was 2. So I have pretty much been an Oregon resident my entire life, with the exception of college and then my first stint in employment. Because I don't think it's possible for us to ever just talk about ourselves professionally, because there's so much of our identity wrapped into who we are as people. This is my family now. This gorgeous woman here is my wife, and then my 2 kids who are now unfortunately taller than me. I'm ecstatic about it, but then feeling a little like, oh man, already. I have a 13-year-old and a 15-year-old, 2 boys. So just quickly, and I don't anticipate spending more than a minute on my journey. As I said, I grew up in Oregon, kid to immigrants. I went to Cornell University, so that's where I did my undergrad and my master's degree. And then I met a girl there who is now my wife and the mother of my 2 kids. So that led me to my first consulting job after grad school in Philadelphia. Joined Arcadis, which is now, I think, a 30,000 person consulting firm. But back then it was just Malcolm Perney, so only around 2,000 people. I stayed there for 9 years, sorry. And then had a chance to move back to Oregon, which I jumped on, having grown up here, and then joined Brown and Caldwell. So Sam's current firm, still really close to a lot of the folks I worked with. Just had an hour-long conversation with my former boss back there. Stayed with Brown and Caldwell for 8 years and decided I wanted to give a little bit. I love consulting. So these both Arcadis and BC are consulting firms, engineering consulting firms. But I wanted to give a little bit of a smaller firm a shot. And so I joined Murray Smith, which was based here in Portland as the headquarters of that firm. And it was the first time joining a firm that did traffic engineering as well as water, wastewater. The other 2 firms were solely water, wastewater. Was there for around 3 years and said, well, the smaller was great, but I think I want to go smaller. So I started my own firm and figured that you can't get much smaller than a 1-person firm. Now Leeway is 4 people, and I'm privileged to have Brittany Park be a part of our firm. And shameless plug, we're hiring. So for anyone in the inflow class who's looking for a job, that's something that, I'll stop right there. That's my journey. That's how I got here. But I actually thought it would be more important to share some of the key things that I would recommend for anyone starting off their career in the water, wastewater industry. I think these were things that I think I look back and say they were part of where I am today. And just, I think, critical things that no matter where you end up. I'm going to highlight these. And then I'm going to turn it over to Stephanie and Ariane, and they're going to do their introductions. And then I think we're going to open it up for more of a discussion and a conversation versus anything else. But 4 real individual keys to progression. And I'm just going to highlight them and then move on, and we'll talk about them later. Be client focused. And I think that's no matter what organization you join, whether it's a public agency or a consulting firm. We've got clients everywhere, whether it's just the project manager of the internal project that we're working on, or it's recognition of the ratepayers, but that other focus is so critical. I think being a lifelong learner, read. And there's so much information at our fingertips. There's amazing podcasts that folks like Stephanie and Ariane put out, but there's just so much great information. Don't stop being a learner. Present and network. And what I mean by that is hone your presentation skills early on and network. Get out to conferences, find social groups, be a part of organizations like PNCWA. They are just so critical for your career path. And then give back. And I can't emphasize that last one enough. I just think it is so monumental in shaping who you are as a person. In terms of giving back. And so find ways, create space to volunteer your time. One other slide really quickly about career path. As you are starting off your career in what I think is one of the most amazing fields out there, your supervisor and mentors are key. And I'm sure you've seen that through education, through internships, through your current jobs. But more than the firm, more than the cool projects they do, for you as individuals, I would say your supervisors and your mentors are going to be the things that really are instrumental at this point in your career for taking you on the path that you're going to go. And then culture is critical. So find a firm, an organization, a public agency that aligns with your values. I just think these three things, they're kind of universal and will follow you no matter where you go, but get off to the right start now. These are things I wish people told me when I got going. So we'll have more of a conversation about that, but I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to turn it over to Stephanie and Ariane and have you guys do your introduction.
Thanks, Rob. I was laughing because you were like, I don't want people looking at me, so I did slides. And we were like, we don't want people looking at slides. We want them to be looking at. So we have one slide, which I'll share in a minute. And then you're like, I don't want to talk about myself for 20 minutes. And I was like, we did like a 90-minute episode about our story on the podcast for a number 100. So, but yeah, so I just have one, oh, of course. Yes, it's fine. Sorry. Maybe I don't get to share a slide. Hold on, my computer's like, you've never asked to do anything like this on Teams before. Okay, so scratch that. I don't have a slide to share now because it'll kick me out. But it was just a picture of our families because Rob shared a picture of his. So no, yeah. It's right here. But now I'm like totally discombobulated. So I have a 15-year-old daughter named Molly, and a almost 10-year-old 100-pound German Shepherd named Logan. Those are the two loves of my life. And in terms of my journey, growing up, my dad was in the Air Force, so I moved around every 2 or 3 years. So like having been in Fort Worth for as long as I have, I get real antsy. So I like that my job allows me to travel because otherwise I think I would get just stir crazy. Yeah. So let's see, he retired from the Pentagon when I was a junior in high school, which brought us to Fort Worth. He retired here. And so I ended up finishing high school and I actually went to Texas Christian University here in Fort Worth. And once I did that, I was a business major. I was an entrepreneurial management and marketing major. Who knew? And I decided like the second semester of my senior year, I didn't want to be a business major because at the time I thought that meant that I had to wear a suit every day and go sit in a cube or like I didn't want to be like office life. But I also didn't want to stress my dad out and get more student loan debt. So I finished my degree and I shortly thereafter moved to Southern California and San Diego because I was going to be a tour manager for bands and musicians. And right around the time when I was like just about to get that going, I had my daughter. And so I was like, no, you're not going to do that. And I moved back to Fort Worth and I went to grad school. And this time I went for environmental science because I was like, I want to do something that is aligned with my purpose. And once I had my daughter, I like wanted to save the world. So I decided to go down that path. And that led me to my first job working for Water Utilities. I got a paid internship with a local public works department here, and getting to work. It was a small one, and I'm so glad because I got to work in the field with all the crews, and I was their environmental specialist, but it was a small city, so I got to see kind of everything and all the way that things within a city work. And those people that I got to spend time in the field with are what really made me fall in love with this industry and are really like my continued why and why I love this industry so much. So that's kind of my employment journey. And I used to think that it was really random. I mean, I have this business degree and this marketing thing and then this environmental thing. And it turns out I need all of those things for the work that I do now. Kind of in there is where our combined journey begins. So before I go into that, I'm gonna let you talk about your.
Okay. Well, I have 5 kids. I mean, 3 kids. I'm looking at the 5 people going, there's 5 people in my family. I have 3 kids. Stephanie would kill me if I had 5.
No, I'd quit.
So my journey really begins in the Houston area in Tomball. My mom, I lived with her, and she was not a single mom, but she was married to someone. She's still married to that someone, but he's a terrible human being. And so he's just a grumpy old man, you know? And so I felt like we felt like we were raised by a single mom growing up. And so I went to school at A&M University, Texas A&M University in Texas. And that was kind of a pretty awesome experience, but terrifying experience because I had no money saved up for college and had to do it all on my own. So I racked up a ton of student loan debt. And I was really into raising animals like pigs and cows and rabbits and the farm life. So, which is pretty like common at that school. And so when I went there, I felt like I fit in, but I decided to change my major from the ag business world to wildlife and fishery science because I thought maybe one day I'll work at a fish farm. I don't know. I didn't have a clear purpose or goal. I just wanted to go to school there. I would have loved to have been a vet, but I knew that I couldn't afford that. And so I had to just kind of do the second best thing, and that was just learn about all the animals that I could learn about. So when I left A&M, that's where I met my husband. I immediately got a job with the city of Sugar Land in Texas, near Houston, and started as environmental stormwater specialist there. And I was there for about 6 months, and then my husband, fiance at the time, was like, I'm moving to Dallas, you know, you want to come? And I said, oh boy, I got to find a job, but yes, I'll come. And I found a job in Mansfield, Texas, which is the DFW area, Dallas-Fort Worth area. And it was the exact same job, apples to apples. It was pretty awesome, about the same pay, so not great. And just working for a new city in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And I did that for a handful of years. And while I was there as the environmental specialist, the water utilities folks came around one day and were kind of just recruiting anyone with a personality to give a tour of a treatment plant. And I thought, oh, sure, I could do that. You know, I don't know anything about this water treatment plant, but I worked on a fish farm, so
why not?
Surely it can't be too different. So that was the very first day of my water career, and it was the best day ever. I spent all day with the utility field crews and operators, and we did a tour for 200 second graders. Again, they had never done this before, and so we were all winging it. And I thought, man, I could dig this crowd. You know, we're all winging it, we're all figuring it out together. And they basically pushed over someone's office from the little foyer area, pushed their desk over, put my desk there, and said, just start showing up and we'll see what happens. And I literally did just start showing up. I would leave about halfway through my day as the environmental in Public Works Department and go check out the plant and just sit there and do odds and ends, communication, education things. And it turned out like to be a thing. They created a position for me, and I did both jobs for a while, and then I got to hire someone after I proved that I could have successful campaigns and
Yeah.
education programs.
So this is where our stories commingle. So I worked with that first city I worked with for 5 years. My boss, who was the public works director at that city, told me when I started that I was allowed to work there for 5 years, and then I needed to get the hell out of Bedford and go work for a big city. Or I mean, he's like, don't just get comfortable and stay here. Like, fly, butterfly. And so I did. 5 years later, I went to the city of Fort Worth, which was, so I feel like Goldilocks. So Bedford was too small, Fort Worth was too big. And then I went to Mansfield to go work with her, and that was just right. So we got like a little bit of both. Get to work in the field with the people and really like be integrated in all the pieces, but also a big enough city where we actually had a budget. So that was helpful. So she and I worked together for 2 years. 2 years, and then I had this crazy idea to start our own company, and we started Rogue Water, which we are a marketing and communication company, but we work only in the water sector because that's what we know we love. We dabbled in non-water things at the beginning because we had to, and we realized like, nah.
No, I'd rather my kids starve than do any other
it was not our jam. So we were like water through and through, and it's been great. And then because I guess starting one company wasn't enough, we also have a nonprofit, Rogue Water Lab. And that's actually where our podcast, Water in Real Life, and our summit that we have each year called Catalyst is housed under. Those are the foundational pieces, and we're growing from there. So I think that's a nutshell of us both and combined.
So,
That's
you know, I
awesome.
think, yeah, when we were talking, when Stephanie and Ariane and I were talking, we were like, hey, maybe, and it was actually Stephanie's idea. This would be great just to have a conversation at this point. You can ask us questions about, you know, our personal journeys, why we made career changes the way we did, if it wasn't clear already, and then some of those other slides. And I'm hearing from the professionals. Okay, don't take the focus away from our faces. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually paste screen captures or snippets of those slides into the chat, so people can pull them up if they want to look at some of those things. But yeah, we'll just have the conversation, I think, at this point. So Aaron, Leslie, feel free to ask questions. Brittany, Sam, Brittany, Tom, feel free to chime in on anything else as well. But yeah, let's just start with me dropping these into the chat, and then I'll open it up for some questions, and then we also have some questions that could help spur.
I have a lot of thoughts.
We use your slides as inspiration. So these are our slides. And so yeah, so yes, definitely if there's any questions, please just interrupt us and hop in there. But to your first slide 5, which was the one about your keys to progression, we took some notes on that one.
I'll go first.
Yeah. Okay.
Here's my top 4 keys to progression. Have the public servant heart. That was something I value. I'm so grateful to work in the municipality world, because from my early days of, day one of starting a career, I learned you had to be a public servant, and it stuck with me. I love it. Number 2, you need to go to therapy. Self-care. Think about yourself. Meditate, whatever it is for you, but that has to be a priority. You cannot start doing that 10 years down and go, wow, I should have been working on myself this whole time as well. Number 3, make a friend, or many friends, as Rob was talking about networking and presenting, but it can be a hard career path in this industry sometimes. And it's really awesome to have a really trusted friend, mentor, as Rob was pointing out also, that you can bounce ideas off, talk about how hard life is. Work-life balance is, I feel like, kind of a myth, especially when you throw kids in there. So don't, there's people that you need to talk to bounce those ideas off of. And number 3 or 4 was don't be afraid to experiment. You can't let failure rule your world. You can't fear getting fired every day. Like, if you get fired, there's something else out there for you. So worst case scenario, like that was something I got to experience, like I can't worry about if this is going to get me fired or not. I have to do this. It's the right thing. We've got to talk about this. We've got to do this, whatever the thing is. Don't be afraid to experiment. And I'm going to bonus number 5.
Ooh.
Have so much fun.
Oh yeah, have fun.
Don't take yourself so seriously.
Because we had to remind, have fun.
Yes.
I did mine because I am a nerd. I did mine based off 4. We have 6 core values, Rogue Water, and I picked 4 because I wanted to stay in alignment with Rob's 4. So I appreciated Rob, the read. Stay curious. Curiosity is one of ours. I think that is, to me, quite frankly, that's a piece of my mental health, is being, when I don't have the time to read and to kind of take in those things for myself, I feel yucky. Be bold. Boldness is one of ours, mostly about getting, I think Tom even said this during our session with him today, but just getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. I feel like when you're just kind of getting out in the world, a lot of us come from situations where, even though school is stressful and things like that, you're in this like community of people, and usually like within your degree, people who kind of think like you and are like pumped up like you, and then you get out into the real world, and it's like wah sometimes, because you're dealing with all these mixed personalities, which is great. But just get comfortable with being uncomfortable. That's a piece of also kind of moving through the fear. Definitely being authentic. So owning who you are and letting go of what you're not. And I think sometimes that's just as hard as accepting who you are, but kind of letting go of some of those, like who you really want to be. But if that's just not in the cards, and just let it go. And then I think all 3 of us curating connections. Mm-hmm. And so not only doing the work of getting out there and networking, but putting in the even more difficult task of nurturing and maintaining those relationships, and putting in the work to make sure that people don't just kind of fall to the wayside, and you keep those relationships going. So those were our 4. Yeah. We have some for a career path too, if you want us to go there.
I know this is being recorded, but could you drop those into the chat too? Just, it's always so helpful for visual people like me to see it. So
yes,
okay,
yes, I can do that.
Actually, maybe we could pause here, but I'd love to hear your career ones. But Erin or Leslie in particular, any questions that you have for us?
I'll ask. So I am really curious. One of my challenges personally is letting go of what I'm not. So like one of the things I'm finding is, I was kind of hoping as I went through school that I would find things I didn't like. And basically, if it's water, I want to know about it. And so, and I've met a lot of really cool people. I love reading and exploring, but I'm at a place where I've just put a tag for the end of this year. I'm like, okay, in December, I'm going to decide what I'm going to do, because I like a lot of this and I have to pick something to get good at.
Yeah.
And so how do you curate those kinds of things? And for me, because a lot of that kind of decision, looking around, I see many places that I could do good work, right? And so for me, it's going to come down a lot to like, which team do I want to work with? Who do I want to work with, right? So a lot of that, when you talk about curating connections, that's where I'm like, that for me is also like curating my mission, because the shared purpose is so important for me when working with people to have that. How do you manage to do that? Because there's so many great people.
Wow. I mean, I feel like it takes time, and I feel like the more that you build that sense in yourself, and you have a clear sense of that, the universe just kind of has a way of this creating the gravity that brings you together and attracts either them to you or you to them. And so there's an element of that, but just not being afraid to make that connection. So Greg Lukash, who's with San Antonio Water System, he's one of our dear friends, has been a mentor to us as well. I met him because we're part of our AWWA section, and I went to their education strategic planning, and he was leading the session. But I could just tell in the way he was presenting and the things he was saying, I was like, man, this dude, we're on the same wavelength. Like, and I geeked out so hard after. I was like, my name is Stephanie. I want to meet you. I really love when you said this. And if I would have just,
done like I would have done, if this was the role reversed, and if I was there instead of her, I would have sat in the back of that room and I would have not said a dang thing. And I would have been terrified. I would have been loving the same thing he's saying, getting the same experience, and feeling an excitement, but I would have been too scared, definitely.
Yeah. So when you feel it, don't be afraid to act on it, to just go up and shake that hand and say, like, I really loved when you said this, make that connection.
The other example is Tom, who's on the call here.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we did that to him too.
We did. I mean, we saw him present and we said, we have to meet this guy.
Yes.
He might think we're crazy, but we don't care. We have to meet him. And again, if it was just me by myself, I would have never sat in the front row.
We were
sat in the
like
back
really
row
close in
and
the front
been
row.
terrified to meet him. But I found a person who brings it out in me, and we kind of duo things together.
Yeah.
And we definitely went up to Tom and was like,
We rushed him at the
We
end of
need to
his
know you.
presentation. And I think he
I
was
gotta say,
overwhelmed.
It did freak me out just a little bit with the two of you sitting in the front row, like
we were like,
silently applauding and like, yeah. And I was like, oh, holy smokes, who are these two women? What the hell's going on? Yeah. And then how many years later now?
that was a handful of years
Yeah,
later.
it's 2018, 19, 20, almost like 3 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's helpful, but that's what's worked for us so far.
Aaron, can I ask a clarifying question? So when you're talking about you feeling like you need to pick, are you thinking like more in like the discipline within engineering or within water? Is that what you're thinking, or is it more like public versus private? Well, I guess, yeah. What were you thinking there?
Definitely what I'm going to specialize like within water. And I loved what you guys said about, rushing the stage. That's great. I used to teach opposing gang members in my classroom. So I'm kind of fearless and annoying when it comes to meeting people. I'm like, hi, you're amazing.
Nice.
We got a lot of people in engineering doing incredible work, right?
Uh,
Like, it's exciting. It's an exciting field. There's some really amazing innovation. And I don't know, I've watched a lot of seminars and I'm probably going to annoy people more than anything, but I'm kidding on that. It's hard to figure out where, like, how to curate that, like how to match who I am. I loved what you said about let go of what you're not. Like, I'm really curious about that statement. How do you figure that out? And then that's something, that maybe it's the meditation you described that I ignore.
Personally, that has been, well, to Ariane's point about therapy, it's been really helpful for me to have kind of this removed third-party person, or not unbiased person who can hear me and help me see myself more clear, and just being able to kind of talk about it too. You like hear yourself say these things and you're just like, oh, I hadn't thought about that before. But what can I give an example of how that's been for me lately? I don't know, because my examples right now are kind of like not work related. I guess
mine was definitely been work related. Like I had to.
Oh yeah.
In the last couple months, I've had to figure out what my role is in this organization that we run, in both of them, and kind of what you're doing. Pick a specialty within our own space here, and that's been really difficult because. We hired someone to take things off my plate, project manage and all this stuff. And so then I kind of felt like, well, then what am I supposed to be doing? If he's doing all of that, what am I supposed to be doing? She's the visionary over here, she's the CEO, I just kind of felt like in limbo and not really understanding my purpose. And so the last handful of therapy sessions that I have been going to have been really focused on, you know, my feelings around that, exploring what does that mean? How do I overcome this? How do I find my purpose? And through all of that and just conversations with her and other entrepreneurs, they have, you know, like one in particular gave me a podcast. Both of us said, listen to this. And it's all about being a visionary and an integrator.
Or an integrator.
And I thought, I was angry when I listened to this thing. I have to pick one or the other. Like, she already picked one. She's the visionary. That, you know, I'm not an integrator, until I had to go to therapy and talk through why I thought I was an integrator. And at the end of this, I'm going, I actually am a really damn good integrator. And that's what a COO is and does. And I already knew what my purpose was. Like, I already had the title of this, but I didn't believe it. So going through therapy helped me believe and find like my truth in this and own it and say, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to focus on. And man, I don't know, it's been a lot more exciting and helpful for our group and exciting for myself to start owning it.
And hey, Rob, looks like you're on mute.
You would think after a year I'd figure it out. I see Tom's hand up, and I want to give Leslie a chance to ask any questions. But Erin, I did want to chime in on one thing, at least from my personal experience, and everyone's experience is different. But I would say you don't. You can feel. You can take some of that pressure off to pick at this point. I just feel like. There's just so much to learn. Even now, I've been an engineer for 25 years since finishing my master's. I got my master's in environmental engineering. I did my master's in actually water resources. So my undergrad was environmental. I did water resources. My first job in consulting, I was on environmental remediation. So we were doing groundwater monitoring. There was like a hexavalent chromium spill. And so it was like, oh, cool, I got to save the planet and save these people on groundwater wells. And it was all about what's the bare minimum we have to do to clean this up and meet, you know, the environmental standards. And it kind of shattered my world there. Brittany Park would get excited about it because I worked on my next project was like a 250 million gallon per day wastewater treatment plant in Philadelphia, the largest Philadelphia wastewater treatment plant. And that was my next project. And now I do a lot of planning, collection system, asset management, and I run a firm, so the engineering has actually even gotten less. With all that journey has been so fun. Mainly because I don't think I did just pick. Mm-hmm. And I think Stephanie said it, you know, let the universe, there are going to be so many different opportunities in your career that are going to be amazing that you might shut some of those opportunities off if you feel like this pressure to pick right now. So I would say maybe relieve some of that pressure, find something that you love, an area that you love, but maybe don't go 100% all in on that because there are going to be different things you find out as you move through your career.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, preach.
If I could I just add real quick I was going to say the same thing, Rob, was, you know, I have always viewed the whole career path journey, especially in our industry, I equate it a little bit to water. And
I said that meander.
Which does the earth affect the flow? Does the flow affect the earth? And sometimes it's a little of both, right? Sometimes the water's carving the path in the earth, and other times the earth is pushing the water into a different course of action. And so I would tell you, you know, enjoy the ride, get in the inner tube. And relax, grab a drink, and you know, and just it's a journey. There'll be some rough waters, parts of it that are gonna be terrifying, scary. You're gonna feel like you're gonna.
You may go underwater a little bit.
Yeah, and then other times it's going to be just really calm and enjoyable, and enjoy all of it. I have, I mean, I thought I wanted to do wastewater engineering. I've now done, there's no aspect of water I haven't done and I haven't dealt with. And all of it has been great. It's all been fascinating. It's all been just like, wow, that was really cool. I didn't know I was going to do that. And so, you know, and frankly, my whole career path is really bizarre. And so it was not linear. I was not this great student who came out of high school saying, oh, this is what I'm doing. It was the longest journey all the way even to and through college for me. So it's just enjoy the ride.
And Aaron, this part hasn't been said yet, but I'd like to just add in here. The opportunities you get are more about who you work for than what you want to do. For instance, like Rob had mentioned about Murray Smith, they do roadway engineering, whereas Brown and Caldwell does not. So you wouldn't be able to do that for some firms and would for others. So just always keep that in mind when you're applying to a job, is the job is going to give you the opportunities.
This is all amazing.
Right? I wish I had this when I started.
Just keeping an eye on time. I wanted to give Leslie a chance to do you have any questions before we moved on?
Yeah, maybe just a quick one. This is very just like also spiritual, and just look inside of you and it's okay. So I enjoy that from like a engineering management group. But I guess one question, and something I sort of hear from all four of you, is that you sort of jumped around and it hasn't been a linear journey. And, you know, right now I'm just starting out. And so each project I get is something new, and anything somebody asks me, I'm like, yeah, I can do that. And so I'll just do it. But at what point in your careers when you made those big moves, those switches, maybe like getting a different job or starting your own company, what would you say like sparked that, and how did you make that decision?
I'll start because I think it's most of my jobs. Well, I mean, the job change from Philadelphia to Brown and Caldwell in Portland was a geographic change more than a career opportunity. I actually was one of those people who said I wanted to be like a 30-year company guy. Like I didn't want to bounce around. And here I am in job number 4 after 24 years. So it's decent. I think for me, as I continued in my progression path, I would say the industry is different than it was even 5 years ago. But yeah, just as a person of color, I experienced different things in the water, wastewater world. And like I said, things have progressed a lot over the last 5 years. But part of that was just recognition of that alignment piece. This is why I emphasize that. Finding a fit culturally, as well as values. And I think that is just so critical. Because I do think the culture that we're in, and when I say culture, it's not necessarily ethnic culture or, you know, geographic culture, the culture of the company that you're a part of or the organization. As much as you think you can go in and change a culture, depending on the size of the organization, it's really, really hard. And that culture leaves an impact on you, no matter what you think you can or cannot do, and it forms you. And so I would say, part of the last couple changes I made was a recognition of that, and that I didn't want to be influenced by a culture that wasn't in alignment with my values, and that's what prompted some of the changes. So I wish I had that advice 25 years ago when I was getting started. But you know, everything has served a purpose, and I've grown a lot as a person as a result of that. So there's no wrong choice. But once you realize it, I think there's some things that Stephanie and Ariane said about not having that fear, like just go out and do it. I would wholeheartedly resonate with that. Like as soon as you recognize, okay, there's a misalignment.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to make a different path for yourself.
I will second that. As much as I loved the city that I worked for, and when I started in this city, I was the only hire after like a 10-year freeze. And so it kind of was treated as like their only little child. So I was this young 23-year-old, I was the only new person. And so everybody got to know me really well. And I started saying yes to everything. I created my own toxic culture because I said yes to everything and got excited about trying out everything or experimenting with a lot of different departments and partnerships. So I had to have a check on that. And when I checked myself on that, that really upset a boss of mine, not the one that you spoke to today, Tom, and that his boss. And that immediately created a really toxic environment for me. And just like Rob said, when I pulled her in and we started working together, we realized that it wasn't an environment that we wanted to stay at much longer. And so I was motivated in that way. If you're going to start a company, I'm coming with you. Like I'm jumping. And I had a lot to lose. I had 3 kids. A lot of student loan debt, things like that. And I said, we'll figure it out, but I'm ready to go. So.
Yeah. I would say another reason why I think it's so important to really just be in tune with
yourself,
you and who you authentically are is because you really need to like trust your gut.
Yeah.
And you need to like, if something doesn't feel right, if something's pulling you to go someplace else or try something new, like as long as you have that trust, that strong trust in yourself, then you want to be able to trust that. The first time I left someplace, it was because I wanted to grow. I wanted to go to a bigger organization that I thought maybe had different opportunities for me. And that was great because I learned that I didn't want to branch outside of the field I was in. Like communication and education that was my jam. And I found that out by leaving for growth. I left that job because A, I had a terrible boss, and B, I had the opportunity to go work with her, and her environment where she was at was much more, there was a lot more creative freedom. And so we really got to just experiment, and that's totally my jam. And then when we left there, that was one of the hardest decisions I've ever had to make in my life because I loved everyone that we worked with. But I've just really felt compelled that I really felt strongly that it was my time to make my mark on the world in my way. And I knew that I couldn't do that at the city of Mansfield anymore.
And I was riding her coattails all the way.
But I had that, I trusted in myself enough that I couldn't see what the path exactly, like what that picture looked like, but I trusted enough in the path to just be okay with the ambiguity of it all.
I love these facial expressions.
I'm trying not to like ramble on because I know that we only have a few minutes left, so.
I was trying to find my unmute button, but I have too many screens now, and my mouse is. I was like, where is the mouse? Cool. That was great. I had learned a lot. I was like, this is awesome.